probably still be Congressman Obama from, Illinois', I think 17th district or something like that. And, but he loses in 2000, loses in a primary, not like Hakeem does, and Bobby Rush draws Obama out of that congressional district. And so that gives Obama, because of the way lines are drawn in Chicago, there's a bit of a lag between the line drawing for congressional districts and the lag for state Senate and state assembly districts. And so Obama finds himself, like Hakeem did, out of the district by a block. And so says, well, my options are I could move my family back into the district, or I could go back and refashion my state Senate seat. He used to run in an east-west district that went through the south side of Chicago. It's very, very heavily black, much more middle and lower class. And so he changes the district from an east-west district to a north-south district running through Chicago's Gold Coast. Most people who live on the Gold Coast decided to become investors in these Senate, or donors in the Senate campaign of one Barack Obama just a few years later.
And here's another interesting part that really speaks to a bill that you're carrying now, Assemblyman, with Senator Eric Schneiderman in the Senate. He's from Manhattan. You are from Brooklyn. Yep. So it basically speaks in the part of the film, which is amazing. There's a little place it's Iowa, right? It's Anamora, is that what it is?
Anamosa, Iowa.
Anamosa. It is represented, this district is represented by a guy who gets voted in. It's a city council race, I think. That's right. By 2 votes.
Yes, the city council.
Because he represents a prison. And prisoners are not counted where they are living physically at the moment of the census. They're counted, or rather they are counted there. They are not counted in the place that they are from or will go back to. That's correct. I have
Absolutely,
it
yeah.
right there.
Yes.
It's one of the most significant injustices, we think, in New York State and, in fact, all across the country. And it's an increasingly significant problem because you have 1.5 million people who are incarcerated in the United States, more than any other developed country. And overwhelmingly, in every state other than Maryland, incarcerated individuals are not counted in their home communities, but are being counted in their counties of incarceration. And in New York State, as Jeff points out in the film, you have 7 Senate districts that would not meet the minimum population requirement for an actual, legitimate, lawful district, if not for the fact that incarcerated individuals were counted as actual residents. And so it's a practice that we believe needs to be changed. We think there's significant momentum for us to do so. We've done it in the Assembly. We expect it under Senator Schneiderman's leadership. It's going to be done hopefully this week in the Senate, and the governor has given us a commitment that it is something that he's supportive of.
And it would be historic, right? I mean, actually, New York would be only the 2nd state in
New York will be the
nation?
2nd state following Maryland, which did it earlier this year.
It's amazing. But the interesting thing also is it doesn't just have to do with gerrymandering. It has to do with, when census figures have to do with population-based federal programs in terms of allocation of resources and some state resources too. So that's potentially problematic. I mean,
absolutely. Though in this legislation, we just deal with the redistricting issue, and we do not touch the reallocation of federal resources. There were some constitutional questions that we still need to work through in order to address that issue, though it does create a great funding inequity. Because incarcerated individuals, the average prison sentence in New York State is less than 3 years. And the overwhelming majority of incarcerated individuals go back home. It's those home communities, which tend to be poorer urban communities, which have to provide the expense related to education, employment, housing opportunities, everything that's necessary for successful reentry. And so they're already overly burdened, underrepresented, and there's this funding inequity. It's a great injustice. We're hopeful that we can at least move in part to rectify it this year.
So Jeff, tell me, in terms of making this movie and looking at how long gerrymandering has been going on and now a push to reform it, I mean, why would any voter, upon seeing your movie, want to go to the polls and feel like they actually have a say? Because arguably, it's all rigged from the get-go.
Well, I mean, we do sort of push voters in that direction of looking at the system in a totality and saying, well, does your vote really matter to the degree that it does? And I think, on the first hand, I'd say, yeah, you should still go vote because you still have candidates, you still have choices to a certain degree. Now, there is a sense in which those choices are circumscribed by the redistricting process and presented to you and set up 5, 6, 7 years in advance by the way the lines are drawn. And so that's part 2 of the equation. You need to participate in your democracy and you need to participate in elections. But what we hope the film will do is get people to start thinking about the structures that we use with which to elect people more than the issues of the day or the candidates. Because I think we actually could use big overhaul in the